people.
You're right. What else are you gonna do?
Okay, well, I think Rick Lundquist, the president of our board, I think you wanted to say a few remarks first?
No, you go first.
Oh, all right, well, never mind. Okay, absolutely. So in front of each of you, there should be a packet. The first page lays out our budget request. So at the very top there is our direct request, which is $16,000 for general maintenance, any general repairs, equipment, that sort of thing that we would need. The $10,000 is an indirect request, just to have us not be charged essentially for utilities at the Fenton Mansion. We estimate that that will cost about $10,000, so the total request is $26,000, the same as it's been every year since 2003. Beneath that is the history of the city's involvement with the Fenton Mansion and with the Fenton History Center. The City of Jamestown took over the property in 1919 from the Fenton family, right after the end of World War I. It was used at that point as a war memorial and a public park. It's still used as a public park. At that point, a bunch of veterans groups, auxiliary groups, civic engagement groups met at the Fenton Mansion and continued to do so until 1963, when there was a threat of demolition to make way for Route 60. That's when the Fenton Historical Society was started with the intention of preserving the mansion and with a more general aim of preserving the history of Jamestown and southern Chautauqua County, something that was being done to an extent by the Chautauqua Historical Society, but that we felt could be done more effectively with more localized efforts. In 1973, a formal contract was drawn up between the city and the Fenton Historical Society. At that point, the city was taking on the full maintenance concerns of the mansion and was actually providing a staff person to take care of those. That was changed in 1993 to a stipend system, which was amended in 2001 and 2003 for larger amounts. This contract allows the Fenton Historical Society to use the mansion to collect city and regional history, to provide a museum that teaches educational stories and provides educational programs for all ages, all residents, and all visitors to our area using the history that we're collecting. In return, of course, the City of Jamestown has an occupant that knows the building, that works within the building, that is preserving that building and bringing in additional resources to preserve that building, and it's also a tourism asset. Our proposed budget for 2022 is $204,565. The vast majority of that, $139,925, is projected to be used for supporting the competitively paid jobs that we're supplying in Jamestown, currently 2 full-time and 3 part-time positions. Beyond those paid employees, the center also provides opportunities currently for over 80 volunteers who help us to manage our research center, assist with fundraising and educational events, and help in other day-to-day programs. Volunteers for this year included people from the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, the Resource Center, students and faculty from SUNY JCC, SUNY Fredonia, and the Pratt Institute in New York City, local business owners, veterans, and many others who just have a passion for local history. The city's contribution to our budget is about 8%. That's just the direct amount. This is a crucial part of our budget. Without that direct contribution and the indirect contribution of the utilities, it's unlikely that the Fenton Historical Society would be able to operate within the Fenton Mansion. So please know that this is a very serious ask and that it has a very direct impact on our operations within the Fenton Mansion. The second part of the pass out here is a report on 2021. This was another year where the Fenton History Center felt strongly the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As in 2020, we've had to either cancel or reconceptualize many of our events this year, particularly those that were held indoors or traditionally held indoors. Despite that impact, the Fenton has hosted over 30 events this year and partnered with over 24 of our local organizations around town for programming, for planning purposes, and for training. Some examples of what we've done this year are in helping to plan and carry out the virtual Doors Open Jamestown event at the beginning of this year with the Chamber of Commerce, coordinating and interviewing with local authors, leading walking tours all around Jamestown, both the downtown area and the areas around the neighborhoods around the downtown, creating a podcast series that focuses on the history of Jamestown and Western New York in partnership with WRFA and the Jamestown City Historian, researching and creating our area's first exhibit on the local LGBTQ+ community, which was in partnership with dozens of organizations and individuals, both here locally and around the state, and doing a series of virtual lectures that drew attention to marginalized communities within our larger area. The LGBTQ+ exhibit in particular drew statewide attention to our area with a featured article by the Museum Association of New York on the Fenton, as well as unsolicited mentions by the I Love New York statewide advertising service. So it's nice to be able to know that we're bringing in that larger attention here. We also collaborated on 2 large-scale projects that were focused around our area or focused on the life of Lucille Ball, and including her time in our area, utilizing that local history to help bring attention to our community. One of those was a podcast from Turner Classic Movies, which has just started being released in the last week or so. The first episode is called Jamestown and features quotes from from Fenton staff. The other project hasn't been released yet, but it's due to be a documentary film on the life of Lucille Ball and should also contain archival materials from the Fenton. We were also pleased just a couple of weeks ago to hold our Saints and Sinners tours in Lakeview Cemetery, which we don't have the final figures compiled on that yet, but over the course of 2 weekends, we know that we brought in over 700 people to tour our cemetery. And speaking anecdotally from somebody who was there for every minute that we were set up, I can tell you a lot of people told me that they came in from out of town, they came in specifically for this event, that they come in for this event every year. So it's one of those things that we feel great about being able to provide a reason for people to come to Jamestown and to stay in Jamestown and support not only local history, but other ventures within the community. Along those lines, looking through our guest book this year, we recorded visits from people coming in from 13 states, from Connecticut, Florida, to California, and all sorts of places in between. A comment from a person from Michigan notes that the person brought their wife to our museum for their anniversary, which that's a fun idea. A visitor from Maryland wrote that it was fantastic, extensive, and most informative, a treasure for a lovely town so rich in history and industry. A comment from a Virginia visitor read that it was so wonderful they spent 2+ hours, more than I thought. A post from an Ohio visitor read, wonderful exhibits. I learned a lot about the early furniture industry. And a commenter from Jamestown simply wrote, thanks for the history. So it gives us a sense that we're doing what we're setting out to do, which is engaging people locally and from around the country with the unique history that Jamestown has to offer, showing people that there's more to Jamestown than they may have thought coming into our community, and that there's a lot that we have to offer moving forward. Over the course of 2021, we raised over $25,000 through our programming and admissions, over $50,000 in donations and membership, and over $75,000 in grants and endowment funding. That's not including money that we got from the city of Jamestown. We've been the beneficiary of a non-monetary grant from the Museum Association of New York this year. It's brought professional training, as well as software and hardware resources to help us increase our capacity to present virtual programming and connect with larger audiences. Despite the pandemic, our finances finished in a positive place in 2020 and are projected to do so again in 2021. Of course, nearly the entirety of that budget this year and every year is being invested into our local community to support the preservation of local history and the employment of residents in supportive, competitive positions, professional positions. We put a focus on keeping our staff stable during the pandemic to keep people working, and we feel that we've been able to serve the community effectively by keeping 100% of all of our paid positions at full capacity for the entire duration of the pandemic. It's been really important to us to make sure that people have that option to keep working, have that ability to keep working, and feel that they have stability in their lives through this time. So, the summation is that the Board of Trustees, the staff, the members, the volunteers, we appreciate the support that the city has given us over time and the hopefully ongoing support from the city by maintaining ownership of the Fenton property, by helping us with our maintenance costs, by helping us with our utilities, and by supporting us with the work that the Parks Department does. So we ask you to keep that going. On the last page will give you a list of our current Board of Trustees. Are there any questions for me? Or Any comments that people would like to make?
I'd just like to attest to the volunteers from the board who do a lot. People are not aware of how much is actually done by board members to maintain the property. That is done at no cost, and it's amazing to me. I've never seen a more dedicated board in terms of involvement and participation. And again, the maintenance that the Buildings and Grounds Committee does is unbelievable. So a lot of credit. This budget does not reflect all the unpaid hours of the volunteers who do all they can to keep the mansion.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, I think that's true overall, not just of our great volunteers on the board, but our volunteers in general, that our $200,000 budget doesn't nearly reflect the contributions that we get to keep us going. Our budget is much larger, but we have a very generous following.
When you talk about your virtual events, do you have people like pre-register for those, or do they just click on the website, or is there any way to capture what your viewership is with some of your lectures and things?
Yeah, I mean, we capture analytics when we do it, so we keep track of how many people sign up via Zoom, and then Facebook does it automatically when we stream through there. Depending on the event, some of them are pre-registered. If there were a paid requirement for it, something where we need to get somebody a link. The ones that are free to the public, we generally just advertise in advance and have people show up. But we can look at watch statistics, people who have watched it for the whole time, people who duck in and watch it for a minute, various statistics that let us know what our analytics are for the virtual programs.
Did you feel that they kind of informed you, gave you some kind of information on what to continually offer, or what things were, maybe not again, or anything like that, or do you go that deep?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little difficult to say. In terms of virtual programming, for sure, but we don't feel that virtual programming is a one-to-one analog with in-person programming. So there are some program formats that don't make sense to keep doing as virtual programs because they're just not bringing in that same audience. But when we look at the numbers for the in-person versions of those from 2019 and beforehand, there is a thought that we'll return to those when we're able to. Sure, thank you.
As the history teacher, one of two history teachers in the room, I just want to say thanks for keeping local history alive. I really appreciate it. And I was kind of wondering, what do you see coming up next year? Anything new coming to the museum, or don't you want to spoil the surprise?
I could say something about that. As president of the Board of Trustees and also a longtime volunteer, I'd like to say I put both hats on at the same time. Thank you for all your support that you do. And although Marie said some things I was going to say, because she spoke first, we really appreciate having Marie on the board. There has been a position for someone from City Council on our board for quite some time, and but we hadn't had anyone. And then now we have Marie, and it's been wonderful to have that connection, because as it should be. And to answer your question, Mr. Nelson, yes, we've done more things than Noah has talked about, and we have some things we've got in the hopper coming up that we're working with, that would be with other local organizations, something to do with the Swedes even.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Not enough information out there.
Yeah, okay. Well,
You could always learn more.
But yes, I'm excited for some things we have in the future, and with your support, City Council, we hope to achieve those. So thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that for the last couple of years, we've been going along with equity-based programming, trying to increase our collections, our offerings to connect with a broader range of audiences. And we intend to continue going in that direction, making sure that we can embrace as much of the community as we can and tell as diverse of a range of stories as we're able to.
And I just have one thing. I know through that you do have some history on Kathleen Harris.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she operated the Underground Railroad here in the city of Jamestown. She's founder of a church, Bethel Chapel. I know that the Taylors have also given some artifacts to the center. Do you plan on maybe given more of an education in regards to her and what she, the role she played within the city.
Well, we already have an exhibit set up on Catherine Harris, and using some of the materials that the tailor's given us. We have a mannequin set up of Catherine Harris in the lower part of the mansion that is situated in an area that tells her story. When it comes to Catherine Harris, I feel sometimes that, well, we tell her story a lot. Sometimes when we tell her story, we're obfuscating the rest of Black history within our community. So what I'm hoping to focus more on is the 20th century and beyond the history of the Black community. That's not to say that we won't still be telling the story of the Underground Railroad and Catherine Harris, but I'd like to make sure that our focus includes more than just that very narrow story within, the one story within our community's history.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
And if they won't plug it, I will. Membership, please, they could use everywhere I go.
Thank you, Marie. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, but I did pass them out this year. If you're already a member of the Fenton, please find somebody else to pass it on to. I would like to think that all of our council members are conversant about and excited about our history. So if you are already a member, surely you can find somebody else that you'd love to talk about that history with. You can get them to be a member, because Marie's right, we need more.
Okay. Guess we'll move on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the first one on my file here is Marty. You drew the straw.
Mark, I will get you the minutes as soon as I get them done.
You are page 13.
All set. I'm Mark Dean, the Director of IT for the city, in case you don't know. And top of my list, I'm going to start with personnel services. I'm looking to add a network system analyst position, a full-time position. And you probably ask why would I add another person? We have a person that works in the PD mainly, and the design for him was to cross over and help in the city, which he has, and he's done a great job. But we've ran into some issues with basically cybersecurity in the city. And I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of municipalities are a target for cybersecurity, for hackers mainly. And we've suffered 2 attacks. We didn't suffer, but we've gone through 2 attacks, and we spent hours, we've been up all night trying to make sure we didn't succumb to their attacks. But this new position would be a person who would focus on cybersecurity as well as the servers and not more higher-end networking that the city relies on. We're also adding a new program to the fire department called New World, and it's something similar to what the police use. And I probably don't know much about it, but it's very high maintenance. It requires a lot of activity for us to maintain. So, although I'd like to say I'm a superhero and like to be able to run the city by myself, I just can't. And we've come to the point where if we don't add anybody, it's going to be very difficult to move projects ahead. We're currently actually behind on a few projects that we agreed to last year that we just haven't been able to get to at this point. We probably will, but hopefully with some help. And any questions on the position? The next request would go to equipments and capital outlay. This past year, we had 4 network switches fail on us. Our switches are probably are more than 15 years old, so we've expected that. So I'm asking for a few more and probably gonna lose a few more, so make sure I wanna put it in the budget. That's also looking for some fiber connection to the Parks Department. Now, the Parks Department is connected to us already via VPN, and it works all right, but they don't share as much services as we have here in the city. They have their own phone system, which if they had a fiber connection, they could share the phone system we utilize here. Also, what else? Actually, that would save us, because currently they pay $2,159.88 for internet for the VPN to work. Whereas if we add fiber, it would only be an annual cost of $10.80. They would also benefit from the faster service using fiber. Although they only have 2 computers, a printer, and they do have some cameras over there. So they're definitely moving up. And let's see, so the next item on there would be adding a network rack and some battery backups for the DPW. They currently have some network equipment over there because they connect to the city via fiber, but a lot of it's stacked on top of each other because that was never a focus for the network equipment over there. But since we've added some batteries and some switches and some cameras, now it's piled on top of each other. I guess that's the major information for the equipment and capital overlay. We'll move on to maintenance agreements. Remote access software. We're asking for some remote access software. We currently utilize remote access for employees to remote into the city, but they utilize a feature that Microsoft offers, which was fortunately free, but it's a very unsafe piece of software to use, according to Microsoft. Although we use a VPN, which makes it much safer, bottom line is we want to get rid of it and put something safe in. So some server security certificates, which we utilize to keep our any remote access to the servers safe. Without those, it gives hackers a great opportunity to infiltrate our system. One of the other larger items we're asking for, which we currently use now, is the VMware disaster recovery. That's a $12,000 item. That gives us the ability, in case the building or all our network equipment goes down, to keep the city up and running. This is a cloud service, so we depend on internet for that. And wherever we can supply internet, we can get that up and running. One of the biggest items we're asking for is the Sophos antivirus and MTR renewal. We currently use Sophos antivirus. It's very well, it actually saved us from those attacks that happened, but not totally. We did, whenever someone tries to attack your system, you have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, make sure there's no lateral movement through the network. And it took us about a month to do that per attack. So this new item on here, this MTR they call it, it's called Managed Threat Response. What that offers is 24/7 monitoring of our system. And if there should be an attack while we're sleeping, which there was, 3 a.m. in the morning, when those attacks happened, that software will actually, they'll try to get a hold of us, and if they can't, they'll mitigate the problem themselves. But allow me to sleep longer at night, actually, if we have that. So we actually are currently using that at the moment, since those attacks happened, and we're just hoping to renew them for next year.
So Brian, how are we paying that currently if it's new?
That was a budget amendment, I believe, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right. Some other items that we're asking for is renewal of the Veeam backup software. Without that, we don't have any on-site backup. Firewall software that we use to, if anybody has to request any information about where people have went, we use this software for reporting. Now, there's 2 line items in here for Sonic Wall firewalls, for the parks renewal, and the Spring Street facility. If we went with fiber, we wouldn't have to pay for the parks renewal. We would eliminate that $600. Other than that, if we don't supply the fiber, we will have to renew the firewalls. And then, the last item on that for maintenance agreement is redundant internet. Why do we need redundant internet? Because we rely heavily on the internet. We use our disaster recovery service, our GovPilot program, our time clock system with the DPW, our mobile devices, remote access, and even the DoD uses it for their cloud software, although they're moving away from that. So that's it for maintenance agreements. And then some travel and expense items. We currently use a program from a company called KnowBe4 for our phishing tests and our cyber training. And then we also are asking for $3,000 for training for the IT department, kind of stay up with things.
I'm assuming you have certain classes or educational components you want to attend already, that's where the 3,000 came from?
The 3,000 actually gives us unlimited training to just about anything.
Okay.
So there's nothing specific.
Okay.
We can pick up any topic.
I'm assuming online or whatever.
It's
you
online,
choose.
correct, no travel. And, that's pretty much it.
So, Ryan, the 20, the equipment and capital overlay, the $20,000 charges and the $1,200 charges, I'm not seeing them anywhere in the budget. Am I missing that?
Yeah, those are funded via here, it's in the back. So the 42.2 IT request, you put it all in one capital project
Oh,
request.
network
yeah.
infrastructure, is that what you called
Yeah,
it?
yeah, it's
Okay.
all combined.
Is there any way to know, and I'm not a IT person, you said
Sure.
it's just, like you said, a lot of municipalities were being kind of hit by these hackers. Is there any way to find out where they're coming from, or is it just, is it too hard to know where these are originating?
The attacks, where they're coming from?
Yeah, are you able to
Well-
track those?
Well, with the MTR, we can track them, but we just turned that on like 2 weeks ago. So I have nothing to track that at the moment. Now, one of the questions is, how would you know that someone infiltrated your system? And the only reason I knew when those attacks happened was we used Sophos antivirus with the Intercept X, they call it, but it actually flagged some files as malicious. And when we looked them up, we realized that we weren't the only municipality being infiltrated. I mean, there was thousands throughout the world being infiltrated. So it was a major attack throughout the world, but we had been one of them. And that's the only reason we knew. But I have nothing in place until now to track that.
I mean, we use it all before training at, Truckland. Is that something you would roll out to all your users?
That's what we do. We do that. We're just ready to roll out another training session. But yeah, it's used for phishing tests. So every month, everybody gets a test. If someone fails,
Yeah.
they have to take the course. It's a shorter course than the real in the first course you would take as a new employee, but, it makes you take the course again. And again, like I said, we're ready to roll out another one. So we try to do it once a year.
I hate to ask, but how many people fail? They have to take it again.
You
I
know,
don't know names. just so
No, I would never give names. It's amazing, there's not as many as I thought there would be. We have a lot of smart people working at the city.
I'm glad to hear that, because
Very diplomatic.
well, what would be even worse would be if it's the same people
Right.
repeatedly. but,
Correct,
you know.
they're learning, for sure. When they fail, they have to take a secondary test or course.
And how long is that training that they have to go through the second time?
The second time is like a 15-minute course.
Oh,
So we,
50 or
15.
Okay, what's
So we-
the first one?
The first one's like 45 minutes.
Okay, I thought it would be longer.
No, because the attention span and, I get it, but they're very good. The Know Before company is a very good company to use.
Okay.
If you want to use something for your, for wherever you work, it's good to use.
Anybody else have any other questions? You're off the hot seat. Jennifer. City Clerk's office.
Pull it off.
I had sent out a memo to everyone via email and gave you all a hard copy as well to go along with. Personnel services, the biggest thing to note is that we do have a longtime employee that will be retiring officially January 22nd. So with her leaving, luckily the staff has already been cross-trained, so there will be a lot of room for everyone to kind of move around in that sense. If you remember, in last year's budget, I had requested a part-time position that had been cut during COVID. She had found other employment while she was laid off during COVID. In looking at our traffic patterns in the lobby, based on what we need day to day, we need somebody that wants to work maybe January through April, and if someone gets sick or is on there's no set time that is, really conducive for trying to offer someone a competitive position, and we just seem to make it work with the staff that we currently have. So I don't know if there were any questions around the staffing items. And on pages 31 and 32 in your book as well. For equipment and capital outlay, we need a computer replacement. Mark has let us know that the time has come for one of our computers to be replaced. And we have also put in a request for a bill pay kiosk that was not funded in the general fund budget. It's part of the lost revenue potential funding there. This was something I'd actually partnered with Mark on when we were coming up with our capital projects. He had come across these kiosks for, for folks if the office can't be open and they can run in and, pay a parking ticket real quick or, pay their BPU bill real quick. Those are two items we can't take credit cards for in the office, so this would give people the capability to, rather than turning them away and sending them off to an ATM, they could step aside and make their payment right there so they don't forget about their parking ticket and then have to pay the nasty fees and penalties that go along with that. And we can also set it up for different functions as well. The $15,000 amount is about the highest that they go as far as cost. There's a whole range of products out there.
And I'm assuming this is a purchase cost, lease cost, what?
Purchase.
Okay. And just because you mentioned it, crazy question, but you're saying to make it easier in case you're not open, so what's the intention of location on this? I mean, 'cause if the doors are closed, that becomes a catchy. Generally, if you're closed, City Hall is closed.
Yeah, There's some offices in the building that have later hours, certain nights of the week. And more so like in the case if we ever have an issue like the one, I mean, when we were closed during the pandemic, something like that would have
Yeah.
been ideal. I mean, it would have really helped a lot of people out. But yeah, just kind of in thinking in terms of people that, you know, maybe leaving from an appointment upstairs and remember that they've got that bill to pay or see it there and do that. But really, it's more so that we can stop turning people away with their cards, since we can't take those in the office.
Well, you have more and more people paying in ways other than cash.
Mhm.
And so you need to be able to offer options that they do encourage.
Yeah, currently this year, and I think I sent the report as well, we're about 52% web and credit payments for parking tickets is what the report is showing, so. We're definitely moving kind of in that direction. It'd be a nice thing to have, to be able to offer. Certainly not, you know, as critical as some of the other capital requests that are out there.
So is the credit card processing fee added on to them paying by credit card?
They-
Or is it actually reduced what we get from the credit card?
No, for the parking tickets, that software company that we use they keep that separate fee. We still get the whole amount of the ticket, so we're paid in full.
Okay.
They just get that fee for offering the service.
Can you get us more information on this, yes, like, are there gonna be fees with it, or, you know, what's the overall, you know, livelihood of this? I mean, is it a 1-year investment, 2-year investment, 3-year investment, or are you gonna upgrade the software? I guess just a little more detail for long term.
That's the upgrade.
Yeah, I know that, but I didn't know if it's gonna be a quick turnaround. If it comes with an agreement for X amount of years, you get,
I mean, the only upgrade, it would utilize what we currently use, we offer for online payments. If you're at home or something, you would come in and just do it here. So really the only upgrade would be the operating system that runs those. I probably like, I would say 3 to 5 years.
thank you.
The only other items that I had pointed out were under the contractual lines. Travel and education, that's been increased to $1,000, just to ensure that the funding is there for these training opportunities that do come up. NICOM offers a lot of really great classes for clerks and finance officials, so it'd be nice to take advantage of those. Printing and duplicating went up a little bit this year, just to cover, help cover any upcoming ordinance amendments. They're quite costly to get filed and printed through our code service. And then our 474 account, the records management. Prior to the pandemic, we were budgeted at 10,000. When we were asked to reduce our budget by 20%, I dropped that down to 7, just to cover our storage fees and the binding for our council minutes and marriages. The extra 3,000 would help to cover the cost of rebinding or encapsulating one of our older vital statistic record books that we have, just so those are preserved. But that's a costly endeavor, so.
Jennifer, it's my understanding with the records that we have here, there are quite a few that have not been really properly scanned or recorded or things like that. Is that something that just kind of gets passed on to the next administration or the next clerk? Or I know that those records are important, you know, we want to make sure we have those,
Yes.
but working for the school district, we're dealing with the same thing, and these records have to be preserved for many years. And,
Yeah.
So was Ashley like the records management person, or she was just like the?
She kind of worked on a per diem basis, I believe, helping different departments. She worked a lot with the past mayor's office and making sure that his records were all inventoried, and, you know, she helped us back when the records got sent out to their storage facility in Erie now. She helped to go through those and make sure that they were ready to go. With the onboarding of a grant writer, there is grant funding out there to digitize, but it comes down to time and people. And so you know, like every other department, we run a little short on that, so. But it's definitely a priority. You know, when I was at the conference, for NICOM, there was a lot of clerks that, some really had it together when it came to that and had secured their grant funding and, you know, it's just smooth sailing, but the digitizing also comes with an annual cost as well. So it's not always an affordable
Right.
option, but yet certainly a priority of mine, so.
It just seems concerning, that all of these old, very old records in the city that are sitting here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Now, all the council minutes, all the vital records from 1888 onward are here in our vaults downstairs. So we do have those right to hand. The things out here are things that honestly, some of them could probably be disposed of by now. They've probably lived out their retention.
okay.
It's just a matter of finding the time to get our hands on them and take care of that process.
Thank you.
Jen, what records, I know that some of the records have to be kept in paper, you know, hard
Mhm.
copy. What would be an example of those? Do
Um,
you copy those beside it or back them up on files?
Right, yes, our council minutes, the birth and death and marriage records, those would be a permanent retention. You know, it would be nice to have them digitally as well, because when we do a genealogical search, we're going through books and then we're damaging the pages as we're turning, you know, and trying to make those copies that way. But yeah, those are some off the top of my head that are a permanent retention. There's, you know, some employment files, payroll is 55 years for certain documents, so most of our standard, you know, everyday work is about 6 years retention. So those are the things that, you know, if we could get them to hand here, we could be going through those and weeding some of those out. Okay, thank you.
Next on my file is the assessor, Lisa.
Okay. I'm Lisa Volpe, the assessor for the city. The main item I have in the first paragraph is that I have 2 part-timers that are retiring in December of '21. And then the main thing for my capital outlay is a reassessment. We have not done one in 15 years. New York State generally likes you to do them every 4 years. Right now, we haven't really looked at any values other than permits. Our last reval was done in 2006. We currently have a uniform percentage of value at 93%, which contributes to a higher tax rate due to inequity in the values. Reassessment would bring this number to 100%. In 2006, we went from $63.73 per thousand on a tax rate down to $18.08 per thousand. The taxable assessment total went up 263% from 192 million to 696 million. It's, at that point, was 30 years since we had done a reval, and the uniform percentage of value was at 31. If a reval were to take place and the full valuation went up to 732 million, which is the current assessed value of 682.2 million, divided by the equalization rate of 0.9320, the city could generate an equal amount of tax revenue by decreasing the rate to $22.08 per thousand, which is about $1.61 per thousand, as compared to the current rate of $23.69. If the tax rate remained the current $23.69 and it was applied to the new levy amount of $732 million, the city could generate an additional $1,178,203 of tax revenue. As an example, a house with an assessed value of 70,000 would remain, if it remained the same before and after the revaluation, at the lower tax rate of $22.08 per thousand, would result in a decrease in their tax bill of $112.70. We have 14,604 parcels, which makes it necessary on a timely reassessment to be done by an outside contractor. We have had a bid from Gar Associates in Buffalo. They were the lone bidder at $285,000. The work for this project will be done during calendar year 2022, for the final roll July 1st of 2023. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So when you don't do a reassessment every 4 years and it's been 15, do you get any kind of, does the state just,
They
do they give you like a little nudge, or do they just kind of, is it just something that they don't?
What they
It's
do if we
permanent.
don't do the reval is then they refigure our uniform percent of value. So when we did the reval in 2006, it brought us to 100%. So the value and the assessed value were the same. And then every year that you don't do one, they give you a new uniform assessment. So like right now, we're at 93%, so your market value should be more than the assessed value by that 93%. Okay, thank you.
Ryan?
Try to be brief, we don't have a ton of time left, but for the Comptroller's budget for 2022, we have 3 full-time staff members and obviously myself funded next year. That's the same as what we have in 2021. Our maintenance agreements line includes $18,000 for the KBS software, as well as a $1,000 check producing software that we use in-house. We also have an additional $2,200 in the 453 fees account this year, and that's just moving our 1095 processing fees that we outsource from the council budget in the past is where it's been paid out of, and so we're paying. I thought it made more sense to move it over to my budget since that's my staff that's kind of working with that outside vendor to process those. Travel and education, I have $1,500 in there for 2022. I'd like to purchase some Excel training online for my staff members so that they are able to, as they have time, kind of learn through some intermediate Excel training, and then also potentially attend NYGFOA, New York Government Finance Officers Association conference that they have each year. Within our printed forms, we have $550 for check stock, $500 just for standard envelopes, and then another $150 for our W-2s. And then the other comment that I had on within our salary line, I would like to hire an intern or potentially 2 interns. Kind of working through the numbers, I just obviously at a minimum wage rate over 17 weeks and budgeting 20 hours a week. And this year, this summer, I was able to hire an intern. We weren't able to pay them, but it was super beneficial for myself to be able to free my time up and really looking to continue that going into next year. So those are just the high-level comments that I have. If anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Corporation Counsel?
You want me to assist you?
Yes.
So I'll start this a little bit awkwardly since I have 3 budget areas which are under the Corporation Counsel's office. As far as the main portion of the Corporation Counsel's budget, we have 3 staff members. For the Associate Corporation Counsel, 1/3 of his salary is paid for by the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency, JURA. So that is in line with last year's budget. This is in line with this year's budget, no changes there.
Was it a third or half?
It's half.
It's half.
Okay. I was trying to renegotiate that to a third, with Jura board based upon the amount of time he spends on Jura items versus city items. Just so you're aware, I mostly work with the police department, the fire department, and the DPW on matters, as well as with the county on health insurance issues, while his work is mostly focused towards, the Department of Development, as well as zoning and planning commissions. And he was unfortunately having some health issues tonight, so Crystal's agreed to speak about his items. For computer and office updates, luckily,
When does that contract expire? Is it through this year, next year, what?
The grant.
Yeah, the
Yeah, the grant expires this year,
So,
through the end of this year. Yeah.
so this is I just want everybody to fully understand, this is no longer a grant-funded position, this is a position the city is 100% responsible. Whether it's 60-40, 50-50, I just want everybody to understand that. Okay, go ahead.
so we went, once again, we're fortunate, we have no computer or office update costs. So that is a zero line item. Our telephone, we have kept those costs the same. We pay our fair share for the rest of the city's telephone services, which are fixed. In as much as our maintenance agreements are concerned, we pay approximately $144 per month to LexisNexis for research software, for legal research, so we can look up cases and documents. Those are our main maintenance agreement subscriptions. Our maintenance agreement for our dues and subscription services, you will notice that we requested less this year, and that was because with the addition of GovPilot, last year we'd asked for software for a CLEO program to better document corporation counsel items for future corporation councils. But with the addition of GovPilot software, as well as better use of what the city had available through the IT department, we no longer need that software. So we have a decrease in requests for those budgets.
$500
Yes. I believe will be a greater decrease than that by the end of this year. For our court fees, once again, we are very much below what we had in prior years, and even this year what we expected, and that is because we have not been getting sued to be going to court. Now, I know next year that is going to be changing quite a bit, but I'm very proud of that so far, that we haven't needed to spend that, so all of that money is going back to the city. The same thing goes for travel and education. In prior administrations, continuing legal education for corporation counsels and the attorneys would be, we would be traveling to Saratoga or to Buffalo or to other cities around New York. Thankfully, due to the pandemic, or because of the pandemic, but thankfully in our case, all of these resources were made available to us via Zoom and via video conference. So there's been very little need for myself or the Associate Corporation Counsel to travel to conferences. We recently did attend a conference 2 weeks ago in Buffalo with respect to excessive use of force and the police litigation in federal court. So that was our one and only trip for the year. But the rest of our education has been online through the New York State Bar Association. I don't know when those conferences will begin again, but right now it's been working for us as far as meeting via Zoom with other attorneys and other legal groups. For stationery and office supplies, we are slightly above what we had last year, and that is attributable to the fact that we took on pleas from the district attorney's office for traffic matters. So that accounts for the slight increase in that end of the department budget. And I will say with that, and I will grab where's my paper for this. I know that we had previously discussed what happened there. The district attorney's office no longer wanted to handle traffic infractions within the city of Jamestown because 64% of crime in the county comes from the city of Jamestown, and it was a workload issue. So earlier in this year, looking at the numbers for how much money was brought into the city via traffic infraction penalties, under the district attorney, it was $1,800 in January, $1,800 in February, $850 in March, and so forth. Since this corporation counsel's office took over the matter in July, we had $3,400 in July, $4,100 in August, $4,500 in September, and so far in October are at $3,700. So that traffic enforcement has increased, and I will say, we've not been mailing out pleas as we've originally done, because I believe that taxpayers shouldn't be spending money for us to mail and use postage. Individuals should come to our office. So what's happening right now is individuals contact the corporation counsel's office, and we simply print out a plea form. We work with court systems to establish the plea form, and as long as that individual is not a multiple offender, we are able to fine them accordingly with the court to bring in revenue to the city and hopefully incentivize them not to speed or commit traffic infractions in the city. With that being said, I will go to the claims budget for the city. And the claims budget, for those who are not aware, is a function of the corporation counsel's office, except we don't really control it. And what I mean by that is we unfortunately don't control how our departments are sued or taken to court in a litigation capacity. So with that being said, for the past 2 years, we had, in 2020, we dropped down the corporation counsel's budget for claims to $90,000. We only used $24,201 and returned $76,000, approximately $76,000 to the general fund. Right now, we're on pace for similar numbers. We'll be returning, as of today, we'll be returning $65,000 to the general fund from the claims budget. With that being said, I have 4 federal court cases currently, 2 Supreme Court cases, multiple MOAs, possible arbitrations with the unions, and there could be more claims that come out of our control. So I have depositions this Friday on a police excessive use of force claim. That would be $400 for the stenographer, our share of that with the county. But, you know, once again, I'm proud to say that we are returning quite a bit to claims, but that's a knock on wood. And a thanks to the other departments for minimizing our liabilities. Any questions on the claims budget? I will say that we have one outside counsel working on one case right now for the DPW. That money has come out of the claims budget. That's Joe Calamari for the Patterson-Stevens matter. We're about to head into depositions with that. I'm accompanying Joe. He's been very frugal with his use of time on the matter so far, and I anticipate that he will be frugal going forward as well. The next portion that is under my budget are the parking enforcement officers. Last year we talked about adding a second parking enforcement officer. We did do that. That second parking enforcement officer, who's the least senior parking enforcement officer, has been very effective this year. And we have discussed the other parking enforcement officer duties and issues in prior meetings with this council, so I will not dwell on those. Going from the parking enforcement officers, I go to the human resources portion of the budget. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Crystal, can you speak to the Associate Corporation Counsel's work?
Sure.
Yes. And once again, I apologize. I expected him to be here tonight, but he had something out of his control.
So to Elliot's point, with regard to Ben and the work that he does, I can say we utilize Ben every single day, multiple times a day, whether it's consulting with him regarding code enforcement issues, or you know, we have 12 19A proceedings in progress. We have, I think, 6 zombie lawsuits in progress. Additionally, Ben works on helping develop new policy and legislation. He works with us on, so just, I guess as an example to that, we're working right now on the nuisance ordinance as it exists, and trying to tighten that up to give us a little bit more, take some of the subjectiveness out of it and make it clearer. We're also working on a rental inspection ordinance, a vacant property ordinance, and then we also will be working on proposing some legislation with regard to the county auction and pre-auction inspections. And that is something that we'll have to work in partnership with the county on. So he's working on all of these items along with us, and you know, additionally, you know, sale of parcels. I guess an example of that would be the Country View Estates parcel that was recently sold. Some items, easements, development of RFPs. You know, there's quite a few things that Ben does, and I don't know that my department could be as effective without his expertise. We really lean on his housing knowledge and legal expertise every single day. So I don't know if there is anything more you're looking for
Well,
in regards to that.
Just wanted you to explain to the public and council what the scope of his duties were.
Sure.
Because he functions with some supervision from me, but mostly independently when it comes to code enforcement and development in Kristen's department. With that being said, I will take us to the human resources section of the budget. Once again, we have the human resources salary, which accounts for one employee that's technically in the comptroller's office, but does report to me on certain health insurance matters with her contractual salary, as well as stationary, telephone, and travel and education expenses not changing from prior years. And then that leads me to a new position that has been requested for the upcoming year, and that is the reconstitution of the Ombudsman Human Resources Diversity and Inclusion position. This was a position that was previously held when I was a child by Sam Nallo. I don't know if anyone ever held that position after him. But, you know, when the Human Resources Civil Service. What?
George Carlson did do it, you're right.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he did.
Okay. I did not know Mr. Carlson still.
I said, yeah, no.
But that position was eliminated when there was reorganization in the city at some time. You know, after speaking with the mayor, the administration believes that that position should be brought back. It encompasses HR duties that were spread to my office as well as to the offices of the city clerk as well as a comptroller. And some of those duties, we compiled them, were what my office currently does as the corporation counsels is we work with county civil service to draft new position statements, work on eligible lists, answer general questions regarding Jamestown civil service. We also draft civil service charges. We provide information regarding the retirement system to employees. We are the liaison with state agencies when they want us to implement new human resources regulations or policies. We handle employee complaints when those employees cannot handle those complaints with their supervisors, and we institute trainings for sexual harassment and diversity training. We also participate in consult in HR meetings, grievance meetings, and disciplinary meetings with employees. As far as the comptroller's office and the clerk's office, they currently do onboarding is done either at the department level in the case of the police department, the fire department, or is done with those departments as far as creating new hire packets, processing new hires, making copies of all forms of IDs needed, maintain employee folders, set up new hires in the KVS system as well as retirement system, and provide state information regarding civil service compliance, and follow department heads in properly onboarding and hiring these employees. They also provide a mass worksheet annually notifying civil service of all adjusted salaries for management and all union contracts, and complete the RPCS system, which is a HR document to be scanned and held in PDF file at the Comptroller's office. So this position would also do the annual payroll certification through civil service and handle any physical and drug testing needed for the departments. This position would reconstitute all those dues back into one person rather than being handled by many departments. And right now we have a reactive HR system here at the city, and that would turn that into a proactive system.
Ellie, overall, could you send me the documentation you did for your presentation tonight?
Yes.
Anybody have any specific questions for the corporation counsel and anything that he does at this point? I'm gonna give a caveat. We've kind of blown through 2 weeks of entire departments, and I have a feeling that some of you will get called back for some questions in the next few weeks, just to give you a heads up. Okay? Crystal?
So page 94 in your booklet, and then I did pass out some documentation, and I missed the memo on format that the first floor I'll put together, so I apologize. What you have in front of you is a more detailed budget than what's in the booklet. That's because Jura actually is the agency that will approve our budget based on what the city decides to allocate to us. So our request is for $425,000. That's an increase from the 2021 adopted budget, which was $417,000. There are a few reasons for that. Wages and benefits, of course, are increasing. As Elliot mentioned, we pay for a portion of Ben's salary. We also have replaced our planning and research specialist this year. That's a position that hadn't been filled. It was vacant since 2017. And it's a really critical position, so we're happy to have that filled. We also added a code enforcement officer in the target area enforcement position. So we now have 4 code enforcement officers versus 3. I can answer any questions about the reasoning for that, but I think it's probably clear. It's absolutely needed. Another item to mention is an increase in title search costs. That's due to our increased activity with regard to 19A actions and zombie lawsuits. We anticipate that that will continue to increase. So those are probably the highlights as far as additional anticipated increase in our request. If you'd like to, does anyone have any questions before I keep going?
Could, you know, if you could also lay out like 2021 and 2020.
And show,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep. So included in this, you'll see the next page is it's called the City Council Budget Report. This just shows you categories of code enforcement, condemnations, citations for equipment and maintenance, exterior maintenance, fire safety, interior. There are 3 different categories of nuisance, unlicensed vehicles, and then other zoning violations that fall under the zoning chapter 300. So without going through those 2 specifically, you'll notice that we actually have year-to-date as to where we were in 2020, an increase in new cases, 190. There's also the ongoing cases, which it's just a coincidence that there was a decrease in those cases, 190. Case load is actually, exactly the same at 548. And I would say that's about 100 cases more than average previously. 2020, 2021 have been pretty consistent, so we're constantly hovering at that 540-ish to 50-ish range. Total cases, increase of 120 from last year. Completed cases, you'll see there's a decrease by 70. Many reasons for that, not the least of which is getting people to comply without court has been challenging. Hopefully that will change with the addition of court, which has been in session since July, and hopefully we'll see an increase in the number of days and times that we're able to invite people to appear. I guess the other total inspections is probably the last number. Our code enforcement office is actually up 16 cases from last year. We're at 1,269 cases year to date. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay.
No, just a quick comment. A lot of people are under the impression that nothing's being done. And I just want, when you look at those numbers, they're staggering.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the completed cases minus down 70, obviously because of COVID. And the court has been closed for
Yep.
such a long time, and there's such a backlog of cases. But just to make the point that, and you've had a lot of turnover.
Yes.
And you've gone in periods of time with less than, what, two people?
Yeah, I can elaborate on that if you'd like. So I'm happy to say that we are full force, but what that means currently is that we have 3 code enforcement officers who are brand spanking new. One who is, it started in June, so he's a little bit further along, and he has started his training. The 2 additional code enforcement officers started just 2 weeks ago. Everyone is doing great and learning tons, and we're really grateful to have Todd Peterson, who retired in July after staying with us for an extra year beyond what he had initially intended to retire. He is giving us about 10 hours a week to help train the new staff, but we expect that will end with the end of the year. So we'll take it for as long as we can.
Not to slight any of the other, a lot of people will call me or send messages and they want Todd, where's Todd? Where did Todd go? Todd's our guy.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, I think it's important to people understand that the amount of work that's out there.
Yeah.
That, you know, and again, we made this point the other night, and we can only do so much. Our job, the city's job, is to go out, do the inspections, cite people.
Mm-hmm.
When it goes to the next level, we have no control over it. A little control over the judicial end of it, and just so they know that people are out there and they're doing their job. It's just, it only goes so far at this level, then it goes to the next level.
Absolutely. I'll just mention a couple of other things. I really just want to give my team kudos for everything that they've been through over the past year and a half. Not that we haven't all dealt with it, but code enforcement by itself is a monumental beast. And it's something that is very visible to the whole community. And the complaints that we receive, it's very seldom do we get a thank you or a positive comment on thanks for resolving that, right? We do hear it from you quite often when we're able to solve some things, but it can be mentally and emotionally draining. And so I just really want to recognize my team for their resiliency and their persistence, and they do a wonderful job, and we're really fortunate to have all of them. I'll also note that, you know, we don't just do code enforcement, we are also the development department, so there's some development going on. This past year has been hard, as you can see, with permits. Permits are way down. There are not multi-million-dollar developments happening right now. I think that is a trend that hopefully we'll see reverse in 2022, but I don't expect it will be dramatic, just given the ongoing impacts of the pandemic. Supply chain has been disrupted. Contractors are really difficult to come by. I think that we'll see some smaller development projects come online, but any of the multi-million-dollar projects, I think, are gonna be languishing, we'll say, for a little while. Hopefully mid-2022, 2023 will look a lot different, but I do anticipate, you know, things to kind of be slow, and that's going to impact our home projects, which are HUD funded, and CDBG as well, depending on what the specific projects are. So anything that has a construction component, we expect to take a lot of time and energy and chasing around to really get those things moving along. As you all know, Jura is the administrator of the city's HUD funds, so that includes it's the Home Investment Partnership Program, and Community Development Block Grant. This year, actually, we kicked off the year with approval by HUD of a consolidated action plan, 5-year consolidated action plan, and an annual action plan. And those were my first as Director of Development that we submitted, and it was an interesting process. And we made a lot of changes to our consolidated plan and our annual action plan with regard to programs and activities. And we'll be spending the next couple of months as we start to enter into our next annual action plan phase, looking at the impacts and the effectiveness of the programs that we were able to complete over the last year and a half. So there's lots of good and exciting things, and hopefully there will be some positive things that come into 2022.
Anybody have any questions for Crystal today at this point?
If there's anything additional besides the comparison between 2022 and 2021, just let me know. Okay.
Are you planning on signing the resolution tomorrow, because it could be on in 15 minutes?
Yeah, we got time to do that. Without very many. Again, thank everybody for sit through. The homework. So before the hearing starts.
Can I just go over that date real quick? So next week there is no meeting. The 8th, we do have a work session. And I would like, if anybody on council would like to see a department head back to ask any questions, can you get that to me as soon as possible so we can adjust the meeting time accordingly? So that council amendments are due the 10th. And then the next meeting, we can also bring someone back the week of the 15th of November. The public hearing and the publishing will be next. And most likely, the vote will have to be, or no most likely, on 11/29. Okay? And again, anything you're sure of you want to get into the published notification, council amendments are due on the 10th, but we can always bring a resolution forward on the floor with the vote. Okay?
Okay, you want to do the finance ones?
Sure. Marie, 1 through 3.
Okay.
4, 5, and 6. Or 4 and 5, excuse me, not 6, that's different. Not mine.
1 through 3 is me. 4 and 5 is Kim. 6 would be Public Works.
Yep.
And then in our new business, we do have,
First one would be finance.
that one?
Marie can do it, I think there's a couple more for finance.
Resolution H, that's the contract.
Can come out of public works. If they want it, where, I mean, it's a.
Tom, you want to do that one?
Sure.
President, as we yield some time, so we can discuss that.
9 and 10 are finance, and we can do those.
No safety in there. Okay. 11 is going to be tabled.
If that's, the planning commission is not,
No, it has to, I was gonna make that recommendation, I have to be tabled, because the planning commission has invested, and in all honesty, it was a lot to absorb in the time that we got it anyway.
Okay, so it'll be read and then we'll be tabled. Who's gonna read it?
I can read it if you need someone to read it.
Yeah. And you need your.
Uh-huh.
Additionally, the plan will be made available at the Clerk Library and online at www.jamestownonline.gov. The meeting will be open to the public and will be streamed live at www.jamestownonline.gov/live. Any member of the public that attends must comply with any public health precaution measures or orders that are in place at the time of the hearing. Any public comment may be submitted in writing up until October 25th, 2021, to the Department of Development, 4th Floor Municipal Building, Jamestown, New York 14701, and the publication date was October 8th.
Thank you. Was there any correspondence received regarding the hearing?
Not in my office, no.
This time I'm going to ask, is there anyone here that would like to address the public hearing?
Is this something you would like us to speak or public first?
We have one.
Wasn't sure which order.
I'm Doug Champ, I'm at 225 Bowling Street, Jamestown, New York. For the record, many decades ago, before any of you, some of you were even born, I was hired to be the first city's environmental coordinator. Seeker had just come out, and they didn't have anybody with my background to do that. So I have a degree in biological and environmental sciences. I spent 5 years in the forestry service, and a variety of other biological inputs that I've tried to work with energy and the environment and economics. Very difficult to do. I'm going to give you a term. It's a very important term. And the term is in dubio pro natio. It's like for the lawyers who know in dubio pro reo. Very important. What is it? It's the principle that unacceptable environmental risks should be anticipated and they should be forecasted and forestated before any damage comes to fruition, even if scientific understanding of the risk is inadequate or unimplied. This is also referred to as a cautionary principle. First, do no harm. The issue in front of us tonight is a very massive project, which I think is wonderful. But on the other hand, how it pertains to the natural environment when it comes to water is very critical. Very, very critical. Not that it's potable water, but it's water that affects most of us in a lot of different ways. So the issue at hand is the designation. By the way, the public hearing notice should have attached to it the environmental review. Okay? It should be there for review by the City Council. So they understand the difference between type 1, type 2, and unlisted actions. They're all variables. However, as a lead agency, which the city has signed on to, they also are in the position to actually have legal issues pertaining to the issues of that environmental review. In other words, give you an example. Many years ago, there was a guy walking his dog in Chadakoin. 2 Labradors. The Labradors came out a little warm. He wondered why. So he got what they call MPIR, which is, it's a statewide environmental group that runs after environmental violations. He hired them, filed a suit against the BPU because the water was too warm due to discharge from the cooling towers, which were old cooling towers, and that's why they have built new ones. The BPU had to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for that lawsuit. 178 article proceeding. That's what stopped the bridge across Chautauqua Lake, which I actually worked on. So my point is this. The issues at hand have not been flushed out properly. And the environmental review for this project is minimal in terms of its outreach. Does it satisfy the requirements? I'll give you some examples. This is a subset, 6174B1 of the Environmental Secret Act. Adoption of a municipality land use plan, the adoption by any agency of a comprehensive resource initiative plan. We don't have that for this particular project. A resource impact plan. And the initial adoption of municipal comprehensive zoning regulations and municipal land use resource management or comprehensive zoning plan will affect the environment of the municipality for years to come. Many potential conflicts between Usage of the land and natural resource impact can be avoided by applying full seeker, that's full seeker, environmental impact statement analysis carefully during the early stages and using it as a management tool for each project. If you read through the plan, there's segmentation involved, which can't be done in seeker either. In other words, you can't have a project that says it's going to do this, but it's not directly related to that, because everything you do down there is directly related to each other. So, I urge you tonight to table this resolution, and I'll give you some more input from folks that I highly respect in this community who got to me but couldn't be here tonight. And I would like to read it. This is from John Jablonski, who is the Executive Director of the Chautauqua Water Conservancy. This is a major proposal which I believe should have had an EIS prepared as part of the prep of the plan. The practicality and safety of promoting kayakers, paddlers down there seems problematic. The impact of potentially increasing boat traffic from the lake through the outlet wetland area should be explored in an EIS. The second one is from Twan Lenders. Unfortunately, I have a conflict. I agree with both of you that more public input and a proper EIS would have been in order. A lot of details remain murky on the feasibility of significant increased boat traffic in Chadakoin. That was never the intention of the task force either. I'm still not quite clear on what it means that City Council approves this plan. It's my understanding that, if approved, the city is allowed to pursue funding to implement aspects of the plan. There are several less sexy issues that the city needs or wants to address that would take precedence over most of the initiatives that are included in this plan. I don't really see the city taking lead on this. This whole strategic planning process was primarily driven by Debbie and the CCIDA. What you've got to do in this case is in dubio pro natura. Do no harm. That's the consequence of environmental and economic intersections. So I think what we best interest is that this particular project go under further review by local experts. And by the way, there was no, I think, after this was introduced, this particular plan was introduced. Now that the city is a lead agency, there has been no public hearings on this, but a necessary public hearing that's necessary to go forward with this resolution. Remember, you will be responsible for a lot of things that go on. And first, another point is the illumination of the Chadakoin directly affects nightlife on the wildlife and other forms of vegetation. In other words, what lives down there is going to be impacted by your $918,000 illumination of the Chadakoin and the bridges. I don't think anything's been discussed about that in terms of what the impacts are in conjunction with this overall plan. So I knew there wouldn't be anybody here tonight but me again, but I speak for others who can't be here tonight. So I ask you to table this for more input from the community and also to demand that a full-blown EIS statement be accomplished in order that not down the road, in the very near future, Article 78 proceeding could be introduced against the city, which you'll be have to fighting in court. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the board?
Does this work? I never know. So I'd like to introduce Christy Beckman, and I saw Greg Edwards walk in. Doug, Mr. Champ was correct that this initiative was spearheaded by the Debbie Foundation in partnership with CCIDA. We were active partners in the entire planning process, as was the BPU and the Jamestown Renaissance Corporation, as well as several private businesses who had an interest in seeing development of the waterfront move forward. To address a couple of Mr. Champ's points, there was a seeker sorry that it wasn't attached to the public notice, and I will make sure that you get a copy of that. I think, as you know, Planning Commission has not yet voted on this, so I believe the intention is to table this for the time being, upon Planning Commission's approval. So we are seeking that in the November Planning Commission meeting. In addition, I would just like to point out that as a plan, it's not a prescription. We'll talk about, Christy will talk about some of the projects that are highlighted in this plan. But again, it's not a prescription, and any project that comes out of this plan will have to go through the normal Planning Commission site approval for every single one, and individual seeker environmental assessments will have to be performed for each one of those projects. So I will speak with Mr. Champ in more detail, and as well as with Chairman Rabb of the Planning Commission, and make sure that we have our T's crossed and our I's dotted. But we're confident that this is a plan. It's meant to be a guide. It's not necessarily meant to prescribe every single project. It's really giving us a direction, and like with other plans, making sure that we're working towards an end goal. But again, I'll just reiterate one more time, each project that comes out of this plan will get its own individual environmental assessment and go through the normal site planning process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christy to just highlight a couple of the projects, and then we'll wrap it up. Yes, yeah.
I'm going to stand over here, but I'm confident I can talk loudly enough for everyone here. All right, so a couple of the projects that are part of our vision. The first few are happening on the North Basin. This part of the projects are more of the passive recreation side, including things like a signature garden where people could just come and sit and enjoy the sights and sounds of the river, and also using environmentally friendly infrastructure to help mitigate erosion on the riverbank there. In addition to the signature gardens, the vision includes tiered seating and placemaking items down in the area that's closer to the river, where small-scale entertainment might be taken in on the tiered seating, or people could just come and enjoy themselves and sit for a bit. In the longer term, we look to an outdoor performance venue up in the area where Comedy Park currently is, and food truck parking and staging area over to the side here. All of these activities are complementary to the activities that are currently already happening in Comedy Park that have started, such as the comedy that happened on Saturday nights over the summer. I was lucky to attend 3 of those. They were well attended. It really gave people an opportunity to come down and enjoy, see the river as a place to just come and relax and have a good time. They were family-friendly activities, and they were fantastic. On the South Basin, this is more of the active side. We see this as commercial development coming through to bring people into the basin area. We know that commercial development is a key factor, a key reason that people would come to the basin and spend time there over and over again. In the short term, the active type things that we look to do are to install a kayak launch, because currently there's no place to get out if you do kayak down into the basin, a welcome center, which would include activities that are happening, information on activities that are happening in downtown, lodging, dining, anything entertainment or events, a dock for water taxi in the future, and then a watercraft rental facility that could rent things like canoes and kayaks that would not only be available in the summer months, not just seeing it as a summertime thing, but also those shoulder seasons, the spring and the fall, to extend the time where people came and enjoyed the South Basin. And then finally, the river corridor area, which refers to the river channel and adjacent properties that run from McCray Point Park down to Panzarella Park. This isn't really a place that commercial development can happen, but it is an outstanding example of an urban waterway that can really have a lot of recreational opportunities. Some of the short-term things that we see happening here are to make the river itself more navigable, removing obstacles that are currently in the river, which include primarily remnants from when Jamestown was big on moving timber through, using the Chadakoin to move timber. So there are these big timber pieces in there that need to be removed, as well as putting up lighted and non-lighted buoys and beacons along the way to help navigate. In the longer term, one of the things, the ideas that we have is to get a mobile app going for people to use on their phone to help guide their area, or their, to guide their travels down the river. Sorry, I had a little, I can't think of the words, but that's what I'm thinking of, is to help guide their travels down the river. It'll provide information on the over 100 species of birds that are currently living in there, and the information on the rare spiny soft-shell turtles, different nesting areas, and the various wildlife. And then once they get into the basin, the app would be able to provide information about the events and the activities and the dining and the accommodations, so that are not only in the basin, but also in downtown Jamestown as well. So it really help to feed people there and then spread them out, which I think is fantastic. Other things that are involved in the corridor are additional dockage up at McCrae Point Park, so that boaters who are coming off of the lake can park and then take that water taxi down into the basin area. So these are just a few of our ideas, but we're very excited about the vision in all the, as a way to bring people in, not only from downtown, but also through the water to get them here in our area and enjoying this wonderful gem that we have. So I'm going to now
I noticed, Crystal, that some of the handouts we have is not the same as that. So did we get emailed the latest version?
So what you have in the handout that was, there's a truncated version, which is the overview and the activation strategies. The larger document, there was a link in the email. It's on the website. It's 200 and some pages long, so.
Well, the shorter one was 72.
Yeah. So there are some additional graphics and, of course, more in-depth information. I also just wanted to add that this project is in alignment with the city's adopted LWRP, Local Waterfront Revitalization Plan. So it's not something that is not, has not been well vetted. That LWRP was adopted in, I think it was 2016. And so additional environmental assessments were done as part of that. Also, Mr. Champ mentioned Twan Leaders and shared his comments. Twan was actually part of the initial study, and I'll let Greg speak to that. I'm a little bit confused, and I'll follow up with him. I certainly will share some of his concerns. I know that he's very environmentally minded and really wants to be a good steward, and I don't want that to get lost with the excitement of activating the river. I also share Twan's concerns, and we did look to him as an expert in that field. So I just wanted to verbalize that we certainly trust Twan's opinions, and we'll work with him as well as any other experts with regard to the river. So I just wanted to make sure that that was not lost in our excitement to activate the river and develop it. We certainly recognize the incredible environmental and ecological assets that the river provides to us, and that's something that we would certainly never jeopardize.
Can I ask a question? Because of the location of the dam and the state's control of that, how much involvement will the state have over approval of the final plan? Or will they have any say about the final plan because of the dam?
That's a great question, and I think that when we get to a place where we're actually submitting a specific project, the state would be consulted, and they will let us know how much, interaction or engagement they're going to require. But we also are proposing, and this is actually part of a DRI project that is inclusive of the lighting project. We'll look to install a safety boom, before the dam, so that may actually limit any need for the state to be involved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that, and thank you all for your attention. I apologize for being a bit delayed in arriving. I'm pleased that the Gabby Foundation has been able to play a role primarily as a convener and a part funder of the many studies that led up to this opportunity that's presented to all of you tonight. And some people complain that study, but in this particular case, what we have the pleasure of doing is building upon the proven successful approach that the city, previous mayors, current mayor, current council, prior council have done over the years, and be able to celebrate those successes, which really give us the opportunity to be here. Why do I say that? You think back to the early 1990s, I think it was, about 20 years ago, when they first started talking about urban design plans. So you hadn't had a full-blown urban design plan. What happened? A group came together, including city leaders, and brought together the community to determine what the community wanted Jamestown to look like 10 years in advance. And so in 1996, we got the first urban design plan. It was so successfully implemented, and not a prescription, but a plan to follow that the city had adopted as your own planning document. It was so successful it won a national award for implementation. We went from what we experienced, those who've been around here a little while, from that classic declining Rust Belt city to a city with a new life, being reborn in an opportunity that was brought together collectively. We didn't stop there. Collectively as a group, we took that report and study, and we said that worked so well, let's do an urban design plan 2.0. Following that same format, brought the community together from all the various components of it, and designed what do we want to be 10 years in the future, and that was passed and was adopted by the city as a planning document. In the interim, the Gabby Foundation was able to bring international talent to the city, and the AECOM study was done. And that really depicted what we could do to maximize on the impact of the National Economy Center. And from that report, we learned from these international experts, open up access visually and physically to the river. The tremendous asset, and at the time, terribly underused asset. And so that too matched with the Urban Design Plan 1, Urban Design Plan 2. Now the AECOM report comes in and says, that's issue number 1, open up access to this resource, the river, that any city of our size would love to have. So following that process, we brought together a group of people from across many statuses, many positions and roles in the city together for the Chadakoin River study. And I want to thank Crystal for mentioning that RTPI was our first partner. And they were the ones that were hired to come in and study the river to determine, number 1, is it navigable? If that answer to that question was no, there's no reason for us to go further. We just said, okay, thank you, it is what it is, and hopefully some kayakers will use it. But led by Twan leaders, a full-blown study, year and a half was done, over 1,000 different waypoints up and down the river, and it determined that absolutely it is, as it is right now, navigable. It can be improved by removing a couple of the posts or barriers that are in there and providing some lighting and things like that. But that was a partnership that was brought together. After it was determined that it was navigable, then a group came together, and that included the city and the BPU and the Gabby Foundation and Marlene Yonkers from the Marina and Eric Kenny from Blackstone Nay, Jim Siriano from the Riverwalk Storage Facility. Collectively, we funded the work that became this report. My teammates have done a great job of describing it, and we could go on, trust me, at length. I would strongly encourage you, I did this in our last meeting with another group, to read this report. Twan spent a year plus putting this together. It's the most detailed analysis of the river. It's the first time, and you might be aware of some prior experience I've had with the challenge of managing the water in the Chadakoin Lake. It's the first time anyone's done a full examination of the lake to describe how that dam works, why it was designed, how it works, and its impact on that water. But I encourage you, just as a point of education, read that. It also has some great history of this wonderful river. But I'll close, and I'm thrilled to take questions with this observation. A gentleman who's known across New York State for his 40-plus years of helping municipalities and entities grow and develop, Harry Sickerman, was heavily involved in this process as well as part of the team from DNS, of the engineers that did the work. He was a sub-member of that team. This is what he commented after it's all said and done. Never in his 40 years of doing economic development across New York State has he seen an opportunity to have this large of an impact on a city. It's merely taking this resource we have of the Chadakoin and using it in a way to enhance what it already provides. It's already a wonderful place to kayak or paddle. But with this plan and others, what it does is it draws the people to this region, just like Canalside did for Buffalo. Those who've been around for a while know that began just some waterfront. Slowly it was programmed with 10 here, and 20 here, and 50 here, and 100 there. Now it's 10,000 on a Thursday down there watching a show. We could do something similar here. And after a visit from Dennis Drew and Steve Gustafson a month ago, who came in specifically to meet with us at the office, they said the following. The area next to the waterfront that the city did such a great job of creating the Riverwalk, adjacent to the property that Debbie owns, adjacent to that county park, is a perfect setting for music festivals like they play dozens of those across the United States every year because of its already existing design. It just needs to be activated. I believe this plan and strategy will do just that. First step, small steps, build upon next step, build upon another step, and next thing you know, we've got the type of activity that they see up there in Buffalo with Counsel. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I've heard this plan now 3 times. I'll present it if I'm like next time. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's great. I think Mr. Champ's comments are noteworthy, and I'm glad I think you addressed that. But I'm very excited about this. So, and I would recommend all council members to take a really close look at this. I've been fortunate to see it now 3 times. So excited.
Thank you, Christine. Greg?
And I'm sure any of us would be willing to take calls or emails or anything else to come up. If you want to take a tour and have it presented as some of these things directly, I'm sure others would be glad to do that too.
Again, the plan, I believe, tonight is, it will be read, and then it will be tabled until the planning commission has had a chance to act on it.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking note tonight.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address public hearing? It's the second time. Anyone else? And a third time, anyone else like to address the public hearing? Seeing none, the hearing is adjourned. Time, we're behind schedule here, so we're going to close the meeting of Jamestown City Council Board for October 24th joint session. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Bracken. Here. Karuba. Here. Olson. Nelson.
Here.
Eklund. Here. Mayor Reinhardt. Here. Russell. And President Wilson.
At this time, I'm advised for the pledge of allegiance to we have our minister. Our invocation will be read by the Reverend Daniel Rowe of Jamestown Alliance Church. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
Lord, we thank each and every one here who are helping to govern this wonderful city of Jamestown. We ask for your wisdom, for your grace, for your mercy, and for your justice to prevail. We ask for your blessing and peace upon all who are here and all who look to promote the welfare of everyone in Jamestown. Especially let us remember those amongst us who are suffering the most and who are in great need and need some services that we as a town could offer. We thank you for allowing us to participate in this government. Please help this evening's meeting to be beneficial and that everything would be accomplished that needs to be this evening. And bless everyone who is participating tonight. In Christ's name, amen.
Grant approval of the minutes of the September 27th work session. Moved by Councilman Fenton. Do you have any messages from the mayor?
Dear council members, in October 2021, we have welcomed 3 new employees to the city of Jamestown. Michael Larson, Department of Public Works, Johnson Abbott, Department of Development, and Ryan Richter, Department of Development. I'm asking that these new hires be acknowledged and welcome to the city at the October 23rd, 2021 City Council meeting. Very truly yours, Edward A. Sunquist. We also have a proclamation that was read over the weekend in recognition of World Polio Day. Whereas there are over 1.2 million Rotary members and 36,000 clubs throughout the world to sponsor service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad. Now therefore I, Edward A. Sunquist, Mayor of the City of Jamestown, do hereby proclaim October 24th as 2021 World Polio Day in the City of Jamestown and urge every citizen in our community to join the Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world.
Thank you. I had the privilege of attending it with the mayor this Saturday. We had their bike ride. They actually rode 25 miles and their work was noted and their work against fighting against polio. So it was a very good thing. Thank you for doing that. Is there any other messages? That's it. At this time, I would like to give the opportunity for people to address the council. Please step up to one of the mics. Just your name and address. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes.
My name is Anthony. Is this on? Anthony Toda, and I live at 144 Clifton Avenue in Jamestown. And I'd like to take a second and just pass these pictures out to the chief and the mayor and also the council. While you're doing that, I just want to make a real quick comment about the deer situation. I don't know if the council has thought about that, but when I was a boy or younger, the way the deer population was controlled in Jamestown, in this area of western New York, was by hunting. So if the council wants to make a resolution, I don't know what the legal issues would be to the state maybe, or to increase the hunting licenses here. We are right next to Pennsylvania. We have a lot of hunters in PA. And I think probably the easiest way to get rid of the excess deer would be just to have increased hunting licenses, increased party licenses, or whatever they do on that hunter, so more deer can be killed by hunters, so it would control the population. So this situation, I think, could be solved easily without having to go through birth control methods or any other complicated thing. I know it worked years ago when I was a kid, when the deer population in New York State was high, hunters got increased licenses as far as the number of deer they could kill, and it controlled it pretty well done. Main issue I'm here is I'd like to again complain about a situation those pictures are showing, and that situation is at Camp Street at the Arterial, and you can see what happened by the pictures. Of the hazard that took place there. There's several things that happened. First, the vehicle backed up right in front of me. Secondly, the green vehicle stayed at a parking space in ordinary for the stop sign at the arterial in camp for a long period of time and turned left. And as you can see, that stop sign, the sign directly in front across on the arterial there's no left there. So there's a myriad of traffic infractions. Now I leave my girlfriend's house after listening to the noise of vehicles all day and all night, all kinds of traffic infractions. I make a right to go down to Camp Street half a block away, and my life is placed in danger by somebody who was parked. That white pickup truck backed up right in front of me, and then the green truck, which was there, also stopped at a stop sign, made an illegal left, and I was wondering why he was stopped there so long. He didn't have a signal on at the time, and it turned out making an illegal left. Now, the other situation here is that the no parking near the corner sign, both on Camp Street and Walnut Street, is being violated, and the police are doing nothing about it. So I'm asking the chief to inspect this area as far as vehicle and traffic violations, parking violations, and make sure that area is kept clean in regards to the amount of illegal parking beyond the no parking to corner sign, not only on Camp Street at that intersection, but also the Walnut tees off at Camp. So this is a serious issue. It's endangering me, it's endangering my passengers, and as you can see, somebody backs up in front of you, you could be risking a collision, and that person continued to drive backwards on the wrong side of the street after he went by my vehicle. So this is something that is brought about by people in the city of Jamestown who feel that they can break the law, and the reason they feel that way is because there's no enforcement. There's no enforcement by the police in regards to vehicle and traffic. You can see it in my case, at least, and all over the city when I'm driving, loud exhaust, bright lights. I'm even getting blue lights. Now, as the chief knows, blue lights are illegal in New York State. I've studied the vehicle and traffic law in regards to equipment. You can't have blue lights. They got to be clear lights or white lights, whatever you want to call them. I'm getting regularly people going by me with blue headlamps and blue parking lamps. I'm getting regularly people following me and in front of me with extremely bright lights that are not in a high beam position. So this type of thing is endangering me. I made several complaints. I called the dispatcher up. I told the dispatcher told me, well, pull over, Tony, if somebody blinding you from behind. Well, I'd have to pull over just about every 500 feet for that to happen, because this has been going on constantly, and there's got to be a reason for it. What is the reason people are allowed to drive through the streets of this city with blue headlights? Now, if I can see it, I'm sure the Jamestown police can see it. What is the reason that these lights are so bright? They're angled improperly, and they're so bright that they're blinding. Several times from in the last 5 blocks, probably 5 times, I was blinded from the front and from the back. This type of thing is causing a situation that endangers me, endangers the general public because you can't see when you're blinded, and also endangers the passengers. So again, if the Jamestown police practiced law enforcement and ticketed these people, we wouldn't have these issues.
Anyone else like to address the council?
Melissa Pettermitty, 246 Faulkner Street. I would also like to speak on this gentleman's behalf about the problems that I have noticed in the city of Jamestown, also with traffic signs, traffic lights, people parking every which way on the street, and they don't care. And so when do we say enough is enough? You know, I hear this all the time. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. We don't have enough. Well, we need to have enough. You know, I know the chief has asked for 5 new police officers in this next year's budget, and I ask the council from my heart that you approve 5, if not 10. I know 10's a lot, but so anyway, one of the reasons that I come tonight to talk is that I am tired of going to one person and then the next person and the next person, and maybe things will get resolved. I have asked about the cleanup of these trees in the city of Jamestown long enough. They are horrible. They are covering street signs. They are making the public safety I just drove up on a sign where the old Kentucky Fried Chicken is. It's a no left-hand turn and where the streets merge together, and a no parking. All three of them are blocked by a tree. I send it to Dan Stone, and he tells me I'm gonna put it on a list. No, I don't wanna hear, I'll put it on a list, because I met with him. And you know what? He has work orders from 2015. 2015. When do we say enough is enough? I just drove by Allen Street today, because I was going over to drop off a ballonogram to a friend of mine. And this whole big area of woods looks disgusting. And there's several of them around the city. Are those city properties? Because if the city owns that and they think that that's okay, then we need to do something. I'm tired of it. Every single time, oh, email it to me. Oh, email it to me. No, I should be able to send it to one person. I shouldn't have to text the mayor about a stop sign on Forest Avenue that's covered with apple trees. Yes, it got taken care of. But how many people almost ran that stop sign and almost died? When are we going to take care of the random crosswalks in this city that are just randomly in the middle of the road? I brought that to Mr. Nelson a year and a half ago about pedestrian lights. And it was laughed at, basically, because I haven't seen anything. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. I feel discriminated against. I feel that people have laughed at me and don't take me serious. And enough is enough. I'm not saying that the city needs to be perfect, but the council should be able to pass their resolutions and pass their budgets, and the city should have to be out there doing the work. And it's not. It's not enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the council? I just can't help myself. Doug Champ, 225 Bowen Street. A couple of comments about our great police department. I want them to be recognized as an operation in the city that always gets kind of like told what to do and not do well, and what they haven't done and what they should be doing, and they recognize that. It's a challenging job to be a police officer, and I hope the American Rescue Plan supplements that department. I've talked about that before. I'm not getting into that. But what I'm going to get into tonight is this. It takes a long time for change to occur, no matter where we are and who we are. This year, we have a cycle of moving cars to opposite sides of the street. Always been in play. October to April. And usually, the startup determines by tree canopy drops. In other words, the silviculture of the tree and the type of temperature affects the dropping of leaves. The species all related to that. And the reason why I say that is that you can pretty much go around and predetermine, if you've done what I've done over the years, when the leaves will drop. Depending on the species, depending on the location, the condition of the tree, and wherever it is impacted adversely. Now this year, leaf pickup is not starting until November. So why did we not have alternate parking starting November 1st? I think it's a judgment that needs to be done for next year. I think we're too early with that. The amount of money, believe it or not, for all these cars moving from one side to the other in terms of wasted gasoline for startup and move out is rather large, especially over a month period of time when you might have in the city 5,000 cars being moved, 3,000 cars. Studies have been done in determining that idling is the worst thing you can do for a vehicle for long periods of time. Start it up, move it on the other side, come home, move it to the other side. In addition to that, I think the city has closed its landfill, not its landfill, but its yard waste site too early. The reason why I say that is that now we only have Saturdays where guys like me who are off should go and can go, if it's open, on a weekday from like 1 to 4. We're getting rid of waste right up and through Thanksgiving around here. We talk about cleaning up the city can do that, but people can't do that. And I would suggest for next year that that site be open at least one day during the daytime for people to have the ability to get their yards cleaned up and move stuff down there on a day cycle, rather than have everybody come on a Saturday from 7 to 1 to try to obtain a way to get this stuff disposed of. But I think that should be looked at in opening up that site a little more and for a little longer. We would have a much more way of getting rid of stuff out in the homes that we own in terms of debris and leaves that come down that the DPW can never pick up because they've then got to switch over to plows. So those are 2 comments, and you've heard enough of me.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the council? Seeing none, moving on. Any presentation, petitions, and communications? This time we'll move on to report from committee committees and finance committee. And our first 3 resolutions will be sponsored by Councilwoman Kalula.
Mr. President, I have a resolution authorizing payment of the regular audit.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund. Aye. Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the payment of $37,625.33 interest on public improvement bonds refunding of the 2010 A bonds.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund. Aye. Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the payment of $38,000 and no cents interest on public improvement bonds refunding of 2011 A bonds.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund. Aye. Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye. Next 2 resolutions will be sponsored by Councilwoman Eklund.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with R. Patty Concrete and Excavating LLC for concrete work, alleyscape improvements, Potter's Alley, in an amount not to exceed $100,550 and no cents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund.
Aye.
Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Glenn and Linda Ross, 10 Glendale Avenue, Jamestown, New York, 14701, for the purchase of a portion of parcel 387.14-7-55, located at the corner of Barrett Avenue and Prater Avenue, in the amount not to exceed $1,600 and no cents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund.
Aye.
Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I forgot to read the note that I just want to clarify for everyone. The Department of Public Works will be using this parcel to facilitate the realignment of Barrett Avenue and Prater Avenue.
Thank you. And now move on to Public Works and Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Wendell Companies Incorporated for consultant services related to the 2021 Transportation Alternatives Program and Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program or other related programs through the New York State Department of Transportation for a total amount not to exceed $3,500 and no cents.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please call the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund.
Aye.
Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bowles.
Aye. That concludes our pre-filed resolutions from our committees. Will then report to special committees. Report of city officers. Report from council members and administrative boards. Any unfinished business? We do have several resolutions in the new business. So the first resolution will be sponsored by Councilwoman Karuba.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing or suspending the hiring freeze and authorizing the filling of one account clerk in the city clerk treasurer's office due to the essential nature of the position. I know this position is not budgeted for 2021, but it's due to a pending retirement in early 2000.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, please poll the council.
Councilmember Sheldon?
Aye.
Brackman? Karuba?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Eklund? Mayor Reinhardt?
Aye.
And President Hughes.
The next resolution in the new business will be sponsored by Councilman Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a personnel agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 66, Local 418, for the period covering January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2025, subject to the review and approval of the Corporation Council as to form.
Thank you. This time I'd like to yield my time to the mayor and make a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of council. We appreciate you yielding some time to explain this resolution. As you know, all of our bargaining units are up this year, and we've had the pleasure of settling one of the contracts which were voted on last month. We're pleased to bring you another contract with our AFSCME unit, which covers our Public Works Department and Parks Department together. This was a long back and forth with all of our bargaining units, and I'm pleased to say we've come to an agreement that we think works for both the city and for our union members. I do want to put out there that we are still actively negotiating with all of the rest of our units. So we are hoping to be able to continue to bring negotiated contracts on all of those, but we'll keep you up to date as we go through that process. Just to highlight a few of the items for the agreement with the AFSCME unit. Number one, under this agreement, we have standardized our overtime rules to ensure that we have a proper amount of overtime and that we are able to get people in as needed, especially during winter storm emergencies. We've standardized our sick leave policy as we started to use some data to determine when sick leave was being used. We were able to determine that data to make adjustments in the contract to ensure that we have full coverage or as close to full coverage as we can for all of our shifts. In addition, some of the things that many want to know and kind of comes down to is going to be the salary and the health care. This contract, as noted, will run from 2022 to 2025. For the years covering 2022 to 2024, that would be a 2.5% increase for each of those years. Starting in 2025, it will be a 2.75% increase. In addition, talking about the insurance, this unit does have the hybrid insurance for new members. So looking at the traditional plan, the insurance will go up to 24% and then eventually to 25% insurance insurance payment from our employees up to 25% in 2025. In addition, the deductibles on our traditional plan have now been put in line with most of our management deductibles and other units. It will go up during the contract to $400 for a single deductible, $800 for a family, and then by 2025, it will be $500 for a single, $1,000 for a family. We are excited to present this. The AFSCME unit has already ratified their portion of this agreement, and we ask that Council approve this resolution so that we can move forward and continue negotiating the rest of our contracts as we get towards the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Clerk, please poll the council.
Councilmember Sheldon?
Aye.
Brackman? Karuba? Nelson?
Aye.
Eklund?
10 and 11 will be sponsored by Councilman Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing Deputy Fire Chief Matthew Kuhn, Battalion Chief Chris Dahlgren, and firefighter Adam Aiken to travel to Pierce Manufacturing Incorporated Midwest Regional Service Center from Tuesday, October 26th through Thursday, October 28th, with fees paid pursuant to Section 77B of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York. Just want to note that this is to approve the changes made to our ladder truck, so that they will do these changes and approve them in first inspection.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Clerk, please poll the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba. Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund. Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
President Bose.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a grant agreement with the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation for $6,195.00 for his video surveillance cameras for Dow Park.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I just would like to thank the Community Foundation for their generous donation.
Any questions or comments? Clerk, please poll the council.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Aye.
Brackman. Karuba. Nelson.
Aye.
Eklund.
Aye.
Graham Reinhardt.
Aye.
And President Bose.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution authorizing the Jamestown City Council to accept the Chadakoin River Strategic Business Plan in the full environmental assessment form and negative declaration as satisfactory and complete with respect to its scope, content, and adequacy.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Needs to be tabled. The restoration or table.
Was there any before I do that? This is jumping the gun. This will be tabled for a month for the planning commission to review it and accept it. It will be brought back in the November board discussion. Is there any other new business to come before the council?
I would defer to you, President.
You know, since we will not be meeting, so that happens, this Sunday, a week from yesterday, on the 31st, just to remind the public that we will have trick-or-treating hours from 6 to 8 p.m. on Sunday, October 31st. And again, people, if they do not feel comfortable answering your door, just make sure your lights are off, and just ask the public to use the best judgment as to go to your homes and when the kids go out, and to adhere to the hours and follow the procedures. If the lights are off, don't go. And I just want one more thing, try to get back to normal. Last year we sanctioned a 2-hour time period, but this year we're going to allow that to happen.
President, before you leave, I just want to confirm that Chief Jackson has confirmed he'll be going as a police officer this year for Halloween. So we're very excited for that. I tried to get him to go as a hamburger, but he was not as supportive.
Just to let you know, too many of the churches are doing trunk or treats, so you can also, if you're not comfortable going door to door, there are a number of churches throughout the community participating in that way, so families can also use that.
I know there have been several people who have asked about the Halloween Fest, and we couldn't pull it together for this year, so obviously next year. It will be budgeted, and we will have, again, bigger and better than ever, and maybe some different ideas with it, but we will have it again, and bring that up for trick or treat. One last thing I did want to mention, since we will not be meeting next week, November has an extra Monday, and it would be remiss if I didn't wish everybody good luck on November 2nd. It's kind of it's like Christmas morning for some of us, and you either get cold or you get nice presents. So I just want to take this opportunity, since we will not be meeting until after Election Day, to wish all of us, all of you, good luck, except for Tamara. She's going to say bye-bye for us. It would be nice to relax on Monday night. Anything else?
Just a quick reminder about our annual rabies clinic will be held on Saturday, December 6th, at 240 Harrison Street. That's the Fire Training Center from 10 a.m. to noon. Cats, dogs, and ferrets are welcome to attend. But this year we do want people to pre-register. The city clerk's
election news, just a reminder, I know it's been out there, early voting has already started. And Jamestown has a new location this year, it's the Robert H. Jackson Center. And it started this past Saturday, and it's running all the way through Halloween. I'm not exactly sure on the hours I need today, but it's usually, I think it's like 10 to 5, 10 to, you know, it's like noon to 5. Okay.
Sometimes we do.
You can check it out.
Sometimes 10 to 6.
It's also at the
Chadakoin.com.
Chadakoin.com, so if you're interested in, it's more convenient for people to get out and vote. It's right up the street here at the Jackson Center. They still have the one at the mall.
They do, yes.
In South County, there's also at the Board of Elections.
Board of Elections and the Dunkirk Fairgrounds.
And since you brought it up, Ward 4 is leaving the vote totals at this moment, and we will again.
Really? You don't know?
Yes, we will again exceed Ward 4 consistently is the largest turnout in the city, so I'm very proud of my.
They're usually
board
in the
and
close second. I thought that because it's actually in the second ward this year, I'm like, you know,